It's time for Twig, episode 47. Jeff and Gina are here, and special guest Chris Messina, open web advocate for Google. He'll talk about OAuth, OpenID, and more. This Week in Google is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. Cachefly.com. This is Twig, This Week in Google, episode 47, recorded June 16th, 2010. OAuth you didn't. This Week in Google is brought to you by Ford and voice-activated sync, featuring true hands-free calling, turn-by-turn directions, 911 assist, and more. Available exclusively on Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury vehicles. For more details, visit syncmyridepodcast.com. And by Hover.com. Hover is domain name registration and management that's simple. For 10% off your new domain, go to www.twit.hover.com. Hover, Hover. And by GoToAssist Express. If you're in tech support, save time and money by supporting your clients and colleagues remotely with GoToAssist Express. For a free 30-day trial, visit gotoassist.com/twig. It's time for Twig, This Week in Google, episode 47. And joining us now, we have, of course, from her home in San Diego, the Bicycle Factory, Gina Trapani. Hi, Gina.
Hey, how's it going?
It's actually the PHP Factory, isn't it?
It's the PHP Factory these days,
Yeah.
yeah, but my bike is
still there.
Yeah, my bikes are on the wall there. But yeah, right now it is the PHP Factory.
PHP and bicycles together at last. Also with us from Berlin, where he is on assignment. I like saying that. Jeff Jarvis. Jeff is the author, no, not of the Complete Wave Guide. That's Gina Trapani, CompleteWaveGuide.com. Jeff is the author of What Would Google Do, and blogs at BuzzMachine.com. And why are you in Germany?
I'm giving talks to a whole mess of publishers here.
Ah, how fun.
Doing the good work of educating the world.
That's right.
About media.
Well, let's hope so.
They are.
Well, what deep doo-doo they are in. And we have a special guest with us today. I'm really happy to welcome Chris Messina. Factory Joe is here.
Howdy.
You just recently became open web advocate at Google. We first met when you were working at Mozilla, and you've done a lot of advocacy for OAuth and other open standards, and I think it's really cool that Google has hired you to continue that work. FactoryJoe.com is his blog. So how has it been working at Google? You enjoying it?
Yeah, it's terrific. It's a lot of work, but I was sort of anticipating that, and I think it's really nice that Google's brought me in specifically to keep doing a lot of the work that I was already doing, and what I find is very interesting about the job now is that I'm actually doing a lot of work on internal evangelism, I guess, sort of bringing a lot of the ideas that a lot of folks in the kind of grassroots web community have been working on for the last couple of years and socializing them internally, getting people to find out more about them, and then working with the folks at Google who are already involved in things like OAuth and OpenID to, I guess have a way of reaching out into the community as well and kind of making that give and take happen a little more fluidly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really encouraging that Google has somebody in this job.
I hope so.
That's pretty important. But you see companies like Facebook, and I know you were pretty happy when Facebook decided to start using OAuth. But you look at a company like Facebook that really does seem to want to create its own standards in some ways. It wants to do it its own way. And compare and contrast that to Google that says we're going to support these open standards so that everybody can play.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. I've personally, I think, been developing a more nuanced understanding of how a lot of these things both play out in the real world and how you can get big companies to move to adopt things that are more conventional. I think the name of the game over a good amount of time is figuring out the right story for interoperability. And what that means is that you have to find the right balance between inventing something that's brand new and imposing that upon sort of like the world versus adopting or making use of technologies that already exist, that have communities that are built around them, and that have gone through a lot of the, as we call, bike shedding process of figuring out what to call this variable and what to call that protocol and things like that. But what I also am finding is that, and I trained as a designer in college, that we also have to do a lot of work to make these technologies easier for people who are new to developing on the web platform, and who don't want to spend their time reading all these mailing lists. So on the one hand, you can give Facebook some slack for inventing some things. On the other hand, they've done a pretty good job actually with a lot of their developer documentation and making it very clear and very simple. So it sort of puts a charge, I think, to the open web community in general to figure out how we can make our things as approachable and easy to implement and adopt as some of the things that are more proprietary or single company oriented.
Right. I know Gina probably has a few things that she would like to ask and say. So Gina, ask away.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was just curious about sort of the current, like what your thoughts are on, the Facebook sign-in issue. So they're implementing OAuth or not? They are. Okay.
Facebook Connect is OAuth?
What Facebook is doing, and I can only speak in terms of what they've publicly said, of course. They're basing the next rev of Facebook login, and I guess they're deprecating the Facebook Connect brand on OAuth 2.0. And there's some important distinctions that are worth bringing up in terms of understanding the difference between OAuth 1.0 and OAuth 2.0. And it's probably even worth providing a little bit of background and history about where OAuth actually came from. Specifically, it's a good example of a grassroots community coming together to solve a problem that a number of, in this case, startups had, and working together to solve a common problem that none of them really wanted to compete on.
We could go back in time and look at single sign-on solutions from like Microsoft, like Passport.
You could. It's a little bit different than that, though. Actually, some of the early OAuth stuff actually came from a problem that we had with OpenID. So I've been involved with the OpenID community for some time, and of course, OpenID is a technology that allows you to use an account that you have on one website on another website without having to create a new password, and it does so in a secure way. However, it requires a browser, and that meant that if you wanted to use OpenID with, let's say, an API, or if you wanted to use your OpenID to sign into a dashboard widget, for example, it didn't work. So we needed a way of essentially getting another way to identify users in APIs and things like that. And the solution that seems to be the common one is to substitute tokens, essentially keys and secrets, in place of a username and password for people so that they can actually access things via APIs.
So this is where some of my confusion. So OpenID does not equal OAuth. OAuth is not
Correct.
A tokenized version of OpenID. They're completely separate?
They are completely separate. They are complements. And the way that OpenID works is that you have an identity provider on the one hand and you have a relying party on the other hand. And the terminology is a little bit dorky, but the basic idea is that you have some other website that you want to log into that is willing to rely on the identity provider, the one who basically says, this is factoryjoe.com, you should trust me because I'm asserting that that's his identity. And the other site basically says, okay, I'm willing to rely on you to tell me who the user is. And it's all done using math and crypto and all this crazy stuff, but it's just an identity solution. It's an identity technology. So it's basically a way of uniquely identifying people. On the other hand, OAuth sort of ignores the identity piece. It doesn't care who is kind of involved in that transaction. Instead, it's a way of securely sending messages back and forth using tokens and signatures as a way of verifying that, yes, this message that was sent from point A to point B is actually from that original place. It hasn't been tampered with, and we can send messages back and forth in a secure manner. Now,
it's not decentralized like the way like OpenID, you have a website, like there's a third party involved which verifies your identity, but with OAuth, the tokens are from an originator, one single centralized originator, right? It's not a sign-in that you can use around the web.
Correct. The way that I'll describe, I guess, the difference there, and this is kind of an interesting, there's a lot of very interesting and deep conversations about this now, because I think both OAuth and especially OAuth 2.0 and OpenID 2.0 are at a crossroads where we're very quickly trying to define the future of these technologies and how they complement one another. Because what we found, to your point about OAuth, is that most implementations, of course, are they rely on pre-registration. What that means is that if you have a web application or if you have a desktop application, you have to go to, let's say, Twitter and get a unique key so that whenever people use your application, Twitter can know, okay, this is that application making a call on behalf of this user. And so we're going to look up those tokens and make sure that it's all good, and we're going to let that tweet go through or what have you. And if anything goes wrong with that application, then Twitter has the ability to revoke the unique key that identifies the application. So it is centralized, and it's sort of a pairwise coupling in that sense. OpenID, in contrast, has a feature called discovery. And what that means is when I type in a web address into an OpenID box, let's say, that website will redirect me back to whatever I typed in the box to essentially log into that website. And then my identity provider will then bounce me back with the right encryption stuff that says, yep, that person logged in, it's cool, this is the user, and this is the ID that you should use, you should know them by. So what we're seeing happen, though, and I think this is the thing that's very interesting, is that people are starting to use OAuth for identity-based transactions. So what that means is that when you go to a website and it says sign in with Twitter, they're actually using OAuth. They pre-registered, that website is pre-registered with Twitter. And when Twitter signs you in, basically Twitter passes back your unique Twitter ID, so that website basically has your unique identifier, which could have been an OpenID, being sent through OAuth.
So just to make it so that people who are listening who are a little confused as not as developers, my experience has been, now that Twitter has adopted OAuth, if I want to use a third-party Twitter client, I no longer enter my Twitter credentials into that third-party client. I request authorization. It sends a token to Twitter, or actually logs me in. It sends me to the Twitter site, and then Twitter says, "Okay, well, Twitterlator or TweetDeck is asking for authorization. Is it okay?" You say yes. It then sends you back to the third-party client, which says you're authorized now.
Yes, and what's happening in the background there is that all these applications need some sort of username and password. Essentially, again, a key which uniquely identifies you, and a secret which only you should know or only Twitter should know. So in the case of using OAuth and providing authorization, what you're essentially doing is you're saying, hey, Twitter, there's this application, and it's Tweety for the Mac or something, which of course doesn't use OAuth yet, but anyways, pretend it does.
Bad choice.
Pretend it does. The idea is that Twitter will then say, okay, cool, do you want to authorize that application? You're like, yes, I do. And in the background, of course, the user doesn't see this part, Twitter.com then sends a token and a key or whatever back to the application, which substitutes for your username and password. So that way, you as a user can actually deauthorize that application at a later point without having to change your master password for your account.
I love that.
So it's
you have real control, and that's been very useful. When I quit Facebook, for instance, I can eliminate any connections to Facebook by going to these other sites.
But the issue is now that people are using that now you're seeing that sign in with Twitter kind of around the web. Twitter is becoming the arbiter of your identity, right? Like you're saying Twitter is the one asserting you are who you are, which is fine, which is cool.
Well, only when you wanted to use a Twitter service, though, right? So Flickr does it when I want to use a Flickr service.
Right.
It's not like OpenID. I still have my OpenID on my site.
Right, and that's what I really like about OpenID is that it's your domain. The problem is that people often don't have their own domains.
Right. What do you do?
OpenID. So
this begs the question: why isn't Google doing this in Google Profiles or something like this? Would be a very logical place for Google Profiles to step up and say, "Hey, you could put your OpenID here."
Explain what you mean by that.
Well, I don't know what I mean by that. Actually, because I'm using for OpenID, I'm using Claim ID. You use a third-party authorizing site, and then on your own site you put a link back to that. Maybe what Google should be doing. Maybe it does. I don't know. Does Google act as an OpenID provider?
It does.
It does.
Yes. In fact, you can use your own domain as your OpenID, but then you can do what's called delegation.
So I could delegate to Google then.
That's right. So it's sort of like, saying redirect. Whenever I try to log in with this domain, redirect to Google.
Right. And
then Google will actually do the authentication bit and then allow you to sign in, but you're still identified as your domain.
So that was a crazy thing I just asked.
No, it's perfectly reasonable. It's just not a
No, it was reasonable. I didn't realize that you could. I actually haven't set up. I'm using like Claim ID or something like that, like you, Leo.
So
I haven't set up an OpenID on my own domain.
Where do I go to do that?
So if you can edit the source code on your website, then you can add essentially 2 meta tags. If you search for OpenID delegation, you should be able to find it. It's very simple. It should take you like 5 minutes maybe at most.
So I can replace Claim ID with Google. And my Google credential becomes my OpenID credential.
Not exactly. And this is where it gets a little hokey. It actually is quite simple in terms of the actual practice and how it works. But what you're doing is you're essentially saying, whenever a relying party sees this OpenID, I want you to bounce over to this other website to get the actual authentication verification, I guess. So yeah, you are kind of using your Google credential as your account, but you're still logging in with your OpenID URL. So let me finish on that point. What that allows you to do is to own your own domain, and if at one point in your life you choose to point to ClaimID to be your OpenID provider, sometime later you might choose to delegate to Google or to somebody else entirely, and you still use the same OpenID to log in all these different services.
Right.
So that's one of the things that I've really liked about OpenID from the very beginning, is that it allows me to own my own domain and sort of have a choice of who provides my identity, and I can swap it out at any time that I want to without having to go and change the account that I'm using on all these other remote websites.
So when I log in, I add leoville.com, my personal domain, but I can change at leoville.com who the delegated OpenID provider is. Can you have multiple? Can you have multiple, or you can only have one at a time?
You can do what's called creating fallbacks. So if for whatever reason ClaimID is down, then the idea is that the site that you're signing into would then ping the next one in line. So maybe after ClaimID is down, it goes to Google, but you're still verifying that you own, your domain, right. And that's the whole sort of design principle.
Chris, is there any kind of higher level then of identity verification, such that, let's say, Twitter verifies that Roger Ebert is Roger Ebert, and that they've gone to that effort to know that it's a real name with a real ID with this ID?
Yes. There are a couple different ways to do this today. Unfortunately, OAuth is, I don't want to say it's lacking in this, but it hasn't really gone in this direction yet. But for OpenID, there's an extension that's called the Policy Assurance Provider Extension, PAPE. It's PAPE. It's, again, naming is not our forte, apparently. Anyways, with PAPE, what you can do is you can essentially allow the identity provider to assert how the user was authenticated. So it can say things like, we used a phishing-resistant mechanism to authenticate this user, or this user used biometrics to log in, or this user used a one-time password. And you can do things like that provide a mechanism to at least have some sense for the level of assurance, essentially, that the identity provider is offering. Now, it's up to the relying party, of course, to trust that the identity provider is not lying, but that's what makes it a relying party.
Well, so the question is that if we got to a point where somebody, let's say, I don't know, the post office or a bank, started to verify to real name or a credit account or an address or something like that, then if we trusted that party, the rest of the system works so that we know how that party operates.
Yeah, so there's a couple pieces that you're asking there. And there's some mechanisms that are also in place to do this too. So there's an organization that was started, I believe it was maybe last summer, recently, called the Open Identity Exchange. And this was an initiative that was started by the OpenID Foundation and the InfoCard Foundations together, working with the federal government to create what's called an open trust framework. And an open trust framework essentially is kind of an agreement, a deal that identity providers could essentially sign up for and opt into on a voluntary basis. And they can say, we do these various things to make sure that our users have gone through a process of either validation or verification or whatever it happens to be. And in that case, those identity providers that have gone through that trust framework, and they also, of course, say, and we won't monitor what our users are doing or whatever it happens to be, those accounts in that context will be able to be used to authenticate to government websites and government services. Now, that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece is something that's called, attribute exchange, or the ability to have verified attributes that are attached to an identifier of some sort. And there might be attribute providers, of course, that can basically say with some authority, yep, this person is a U.S. citizen, or yep, this person lives in California. And those things become very valuable, of course, over time, but we're not quite there in terms of where maybe we'd like to be. But it's definitely coming, I think, and it's pretty exciting stuff. That makes sense?
I would like. This is great stuff, and I would like to continue with it, but I also want to make sure we get some other stuff in here as well.
For sure.
It's so great to have Chris Messina on and actually hear this story directly. You guys, we can do a couple more if you or Jeff, you or Gina have additional questions, but.
No, I'm good. I'm setting up my meta tags now, and I'm moving to the new Facebook API because I was using the old Facebook Connect, but now I like have a reason.
There you go.
Awesome.
So I'm good.
So you authenticate. You're saying you're using as your OpenID provider Facebook, or you're saying
I was using I think Yahoo.
Yahoo. Okay.
Yeah, Yahoo is a provider, and it was a while ago, and I always wanted to just use my own domain, and I never took the time to look up how to do it because I thought I was gonna have to install some sort of server. I didn't realize that you could do the delegate thing, which is very, very cool.
It's just some,
and it literally is 2 meta tags.
Exactly, it's just 2 meta tags in the HTML.
You can even literally go to my homepage, and you could view source and see the tags that I've got there, and basically, just make sure that you use your own OpenID provider, because you won't be able to authenticate as me. But that would be where to go to find out how to do this.
I was just looking.
Is there a plugin for WordPress or something like that for us mortals?
In fact, there is. There's a very good one, and the person who wrote that plugin is sitting next to me now, actually.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, if you search for the OpenID WordPress plugin, you can find it. It acts both as a OpenID provider, which is pretty cool, but it also acts as a relying party. So that means that people can use their OpenIDs to sign into your website and leave authenticated comments.
Ah, that's interesting. Ooh. This is it. Will Norris and Factory Joe, in fact, are the authors.
That's right.
Oh, that's cool. So I've just been doing it with meta tags, but it sounds like this would add some features that I probably
Well, so now this is interesting. And this is sort of an interesting point about OpenID as well. If you want to provide your own OpenID, great, do it. However, for me, and I'm not like, I'm not really the developer at all. I just play one on the internet. I would prefer to have someone else actually be responsible for managing my OpenID credentials and login and security and things like that. The delegation thing is a very simple, very low cost, very easy way of actually, relying on someone else. So you can totally run your own OpenID provider with the OpenID WordPress plugin. And if you want to do that, do it, but I would recommend getting SSL on your site and making sure that you're pretty confident about being able to manage WordPress and keeping all the security updates.
Oh, so this is not delegation. This is actually making you an OpenID provider.
That's right. So you can actually become an OpenID provider for many people if you have a multi-user blog, for example.
What's
or you
the
could
for
just have your own
dummies
personal
version?
You don't want to do this, Jeff.
No.
You
What's
can
the for
install
dummies
this,
version?
Jeff.
What's the can I? That's why I want to be able to go to Google and say, identify me, brand.
Yeah, you want to delegate to Google.
Yeah, you want to delegate. So you want to use
I have to do
the
that with
meta tags.
Yeah, that's just 2 lines. It's pretty easy to do.
That's
I
right.
know, but
And you put it in your, and if you're doing it in WordPress, you'd put it in your template in something that gets loaded every time the word gets, the template gets loaded. Usually that would be your header.
Yes.
And it's just too, I can email you. I could type it into a text message. It's that simple. It's very cool. And you know what, we will put, in our show notes, Ken Shepardson just posted a blog post from robboak.com. But this is one of many links. There's a lot of them on using your Google account as your OpenID provider for your blog. It's very straightforward.
Super.
Yeah,
cool.
And he's got just all the text you need in here. That's cool. That's a very simple thing to do. All right, but we do need to move on. We will get to some of the week's Google news in just a little bit. I was able a little earlier to order an iPhone. I'm sad to say. But
you actually got through the process?
I actually got through it. Well,
That's
I wanted
amazing.
to see.
Good for you.
Yeah, now my wallet's lightened by $761 because I didn't qualify. Because I make the mistake of buying one every time Apple dangles it in front of my eyes. We'll talk about that and all the googly news in just a little bit. We got to take a little break. If you guys want to take a bio break, please feel free. You got a minute? I'm going to talk about GoToAssist and GoToAssist.com. This is from our great friends at Citrix. GoToAssist is a system that will allow you to become your tech support wizard for your family or friends, or better yet, if you're in the business of tech support or you support some software, this will make you a tech support hero. You can try it free for 30 days. Go to gotoassist.com/twig for the 30-day free trial. You know, it's based on the remote access capabilities that Citrix is famous for. Of course, they got Go to My PC, Go to Meeting, the Citrix Enterprise, but it adds special features for tech support. fact, you could use this. I could use this with you, Jeff. I could use this to go to your system. I don't know. I could screw you up real good. So maybe I better not do that. Go to gotoassist.com/twig. You get up to 8 sessions at once, unattended support. It's very easy. In fact, even if your supportees don't yet have it installed, you just send them a link or say, go to gotoassist.com, and they put the information in, and suddenly you're in there. You're modifying their system. You're fixing their system. You're making it work. You can drag and drop patches and fixes from your system to theirs. It'll even give you an assay of what operating system, what security software, everything's running in the background. Try it free, 30 days. Go to assist.com/twig. We thank them so much for their support for This Week in Google. So we were, I see a post here from you, Jeff, on the Google operating system, Chrome OS. Google's done so well with Android. You often wonder whether Chrome OS, but they're still going full speed ahead with this thing. And
I still wonder if it's not just right hand, left hand.
It's just two different groups.
Yeah, I don't know that I get the strategy, but
we become such Android fans. In fact, one of the reasons I ordered the iPhone is only because my HTC Nexus 1 handset.
Oh, yeah, Leo.
Well, I can't say I'm going to the iPhone because we talked you out of yours,
the dog
Jeff.
ate my Android.
I'm just going to try it, Jeff. I'm just going to try it. I still love my Nexus 1. In fact, running Froyo 2.2 is just awesome. I
still don't have it.
It didn't push it out to you?
No, it hasn't pushed out yet. It should.
Well, that's weird.
Should soon.
You're on T-Mobile, right, Jeff?
Yeah.
By the way, T-Mobile should work very well in Berlin.
Well, because my account doesn't really do that, so I signed on for TruePhone, which was a bit of a pain, and I'm going to try that here. But otherwise, I'm using the iPhone.
Interesting. Yeah, no, my problem with Nexus 1, and others have had this problem, is that and I think this is the one thing I don't like about Android, is this top switch that you wake the thing up with. It died, and of course I can't wake the phone up. Wake up! I know it's there. Yeah. I know it's alive. The little ball will blink. If I connect it to USB,
so it has power and everything.
Well, yeah. So what I did is I popped the battery because I thought, well, maybe it's a software thing. Pop the battery, and now I can't turn on the phone. It won't go. It won't go on. So now I know it's a switch. It's not software.
All you got to do is sign into your Evo, and everything will be there. So that's the good news.
I do love that feature. I do love that feature. So are you using the Evo now more? Gina got both, of course, from Google.
Yeah, no, I'm actually I'm sticking with the Nexus 1 for now. I really like Froyo, and a friend of mine is thinking about buying the Evo, so I gave him the Evo to kind of test drive for a little while. Yeah, so
I liked the Evo, but same with as you say, I decided to stick with it.
Still waiting for. Did you really ever play with the Incredible? Yeah.
No, and I think if I were going to go with Verizon, I would absolutely get an Incredible. But I need GSM.
Yeah.
I really need GSM.
That's the thing. If you travel, for sure.
Yeah.
So it looks like Chrome OS is coming out Q4 this year. And did you hear about cromoting? This is a word that I'm kind of obsessed with right now.
Cromoting? What is that?
Cromoting. Someone dug up on one of the Google mailing lists about Chrome OS that it's going to have this feature that they're calling right now cromoting. It's not the official feature name, but it's basically remote desktop. So you can remote desktop into another PC and use applications there.
Built in?
From Chrome OS,
yep.
Yes.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's
it's another kind of cloud thing, except your cloud is in your home machine, not in the cloud.
Yeah, it's an internal personal cloud.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Right. It's interesting, though, because it kind of makes devices that run Chrome OS kind of a complement to another device. This is kind of my thing with the iPad, is that it's a peripheral. You know what I mean? You have to connect it to something. I mean, at least initially, right? I mean, it's kind of built to sync with another machine. It's not like you could buy an iPad and just use it. Although if you synced it once, you could. But Chrome OS kind of struck me too. It was is Chrome OS one of the options for a new Google employee as like one of their operating systems?
What's the story there, Chris?
About which part? About the new options?
What operating systems were you offered when you started?
Chris is like,
I was offered a PC, Mac, or Linux.
Oh, you did have the choice. And Colleen, who went over there just a month ago, said she was only given Mac or Linux as a choice.
Yeah.
So I guess that's
Chrome OS wasn't a choice.
It's not mature enough. You couldn't do anything with Chrome OS yet.
Yeah.
Really. I'm glad it's coming along. Why not? The more the merrier. But I think it's great. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I use, by the way, it's basically Chrome, right? I mean, it's just you do everything through Chrome, no?
Yeah. I mean, this is sort of like the story of the web as platform.
Right.
I think it's pretty exciting to see that. You know, it's interesting, and it's kind of worth bringing up. I did some work last fall with Mozilla before I joined Google, and this has been something that's been very challenging in a lot of the stuff that I've worked on. I don't know if you know, but I was one of the co-founders of Flock, the social browser, which I guess just came out with a new story today, which is actually being, now they're being built on Chromium.
Oh, because they were a Mozilla browser.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a big story.
I'm very happy about that.
That's a huge shift.
It is. You can actually download the new beta, which is Windows only, unfortunately, so I can't try it. Oh. But actually, if you go to beta.flock.com, you should be able to find it. But anyways, the point is that what I think is interesting about what's going on with this stuff is this confluence, or I guess the nexus of the browser and the OS. And one of the things that I've been working on a lot, and we started the conversation with this, is around identity and where identity should sort of exist. Should it live in the browser or should it live in the OS? And what is the difference between the two? And especially if you have a shared computing device, do you log into the browser, which then logs you into all your web services? Or do you log into the operating system, which then logs you into the browser, which then logs you into all your web services? So with Chrome OS, I think one of the cool ideas is to be able to log into the OS, which also logs you into all your web services. And now you can sort of not worry about managing passwords and all that other stuff.
Yeah, kind of like how Android works, right? I mean, you kind of sign in with different accounts, your Facebook account, your Gmail account, your Google account, and then things just work, right? Because they know it logs you in automatically. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to try the new Flock. I was always a fan of Flock. Flock is a social browser that is at browser level logging you into all your accounts. But that's how you use Friendfeed, Facebook, Twitter, Flickr. You use it in a browser. It's the only way you would use it, really.
Well, that's the thing about the browser, too, is that it's, of course, the one application that you use that kind of knows all of your accounts, knows all your passwords.
Right.
So you have to trust it a whole lot. And the fact that the browser hasn't really changed in even the last decade, I mean, even since Firefox came out, to try to understand you and your profiles and your personas as you go across the web and how you behave differently and use different accounts or different names in different places, I think is a huge opportunity and something that I hope we see, I guess, more thought and more innovation on, especially, with mobile devices, whether, it's a Chrome OS or Chrome tablet or it's an iPad or whatever it's going to be, the ability to just pick up a device, sign into it, and have all of your friends and all your services available to you without having to sign into each one incrementally, I think is going to be a major innovation and something that's extremely important for the future of making this stuff more accessible to a wider audience.
I guess I was the last person in the world still using Google Web Alerts. I don't.
I use them. I use them.
That's my vanity search. It's how I check to see how I'm doing in the world.
What people are saying about you.
What are they saying about me? So so it turns out it was just you and me, Gina.
I actually use it. A friend of mine is involved in a court case, and I have a news alert for like any news around it. So I actually don't use it just for ego stuff, although I do use it for ego stuff too.
So last week, Google announced it's not going to offer alerts for web search results. We'll replace them with comprehensive alerts. That includes web, Google News, and blog. Marcel Gordon, who is the project manager for Google Alerts, says web alerts weren't very popular. So what's the difference? So it's
a very, very subtle difference, right? So it's just web search results versus, results for everything, news, blogs.
Okay.
And all that
Well,
stuff,
that's what I thought I was getting anyway. Was everything?
Yeah, I mean, if you had your alert just set to web, it's going to get switched to everything, which means you might get a few more alerts.
Right.
And if you do, you can just adjust the frequency or whatever. But yeah, I mean, they're just kind of paring down the options, which seems reasonable.
Yeah, it's really just a simplification.
Yeah.
It's not really a loss of functionality.
Oh, whew.
Yeah, the simplification is good.
I was scared for a minute. I've had it type everything I think anyway because I wanted everything anybody says about me. I want to know.
Yeah, it's the conversation. It's not pure ego. It's conversation.
Well, in my case, it's pure.
That's how I justify it.
Yeah, it's conversation. That's what it is.
You know, what upsets me is that there is absolutely no way that I can find to use Technorati the way I used to use it, which was just that.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yes.
Oh, I do,
used
too.
to use
Why
Technorati
does it exist? What does it do? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should get Gabe on and he can explain it to us. Google researcher gives Microsoft 5 days to fix XP zero-day bug. We were talking about this on Security Now yesterday. Now, we should let you know it's only Windows Server 2003 and XP, but a Google engineer today published an attack code that exploits a zero-day vulnerability. I don't think he did it under the auspices of Google. Travis Ormandy is a security worker for Google in Switzerland. He says, hey, I told him 5 days ago. This has always been an issue in the security community, is how long you give an operating system or company to fix the flaw before you publicize it. And in some cases, it can be 6 months. I know when I was talking to Matt Conyer from WooWoo, he said there's been, I love the name of these companies.
How could you say that with a straight face?
WooWoo.
I'm Matt from WooWoo.
They're a good security company. He said, we know of an Apple flaw that they haven't fixed in a year. This was some years ago, but they haven't fixed it in a year. And I think there are considerable Apple flaws that partially from the open source software and the Darwin layer that just have been hanging out there for ages. Everybody knows about them, but Apple just doesn't fix them. We just got a big Apple 200 megabyte push today. So nothing much to say about it. I guess that's not really a Google story, but except for this connection to.
But it's not really Google versus Microsoft, right? I mean, this person didn't post as a Google employee trying to shame Microsoft, right? I mean, he's a security guy. He just happens to be a researcher for Google. It seemed, I mean, he let them know. I mean, you have to kind of assume that people who are trying to exploit Windows PCs
they must know by now.
Know about the exploit. Right. They already know.
That's the theory.
So it's kind of better, right, that everyone knows.
After a while, the bad guys know, so now it's really time to step up.
Well, and there's a protocol for this too. I mean, and I think that the protocol was more or less followed, where you do give proper notice and enough time so that changes can be made and fixes can be rolled out. And then if they don't, then it's more and more time where that vulnerability is kind of out there unpatched. So it's hard to say that they did anything wrong.
Right. 5 days is fast, but that's the only issue. Google's said his personal views on disclosure don't reflect the views of his colleagues or Google's stance on disclosure as a whole. So he's working on his own. Yeah. Much more serious headache for Google, the issue of this, and I think it's a bogus issue. I think every security expert agrees, of this collection of private data from Wi-Fi networks. Google, as just to update you if you haven't heard the story, Google when it was sending its Street View cars around was also mapping Wi-Fi access points, as you would completely expect it to do, matching SSIDs to MAC addresses, and in the process gathering some data only on unencrypted Wi-Fi access spots. That data being useful in this process. However, when they were doing a survey, an assay of what they were up to in Germany, I think it was, where there are serious anti-Street View privacy concerns, they discovered this was being snapped. These snippets of data were being collected. They revealed it. Have they turned the information over to Germany? I'm not sure yet if they. I
think they finally did. I mean, part of the problem was that evidently the way I hear it in Germany was that Google was first asked and said. They didn't respond, and then it came up later. But they're wacky about this here. They're just wacky.
Well, we're about to be wacky here in the States. 30 separate states' attorneys general are now looking into whether Google violated any laws with this Street View mapping.
Well, this is the thing. They're all like, there better be a law here that's getting broken. We just have to figure out which one it is.
And we should point out, first of all, that this data is very fragmentary because it's
no
moving
possible
vehicles.
Use or the chances that there's anything that's personally identifiable and informative in that is nil.
And incidentally, these were all unencrypted. I mean, this data is being sent out in non-fragmentary fashion all the time by these access points.
Yes.
And anybody who wanted to sit outside and camp outside could capture it easily. Richard Blumenthal started this, Connecticut's Attorney General. He says violating legitimate expectations of privacy on the part of both homeowners and business people is an extraordinarily serious issue. This is all just campaigning.
I mean, okay, fine. I mean, I get the point. It's like you don't expect that a car driving by your home is recording the data being transferred over your open network. Fine, that's true. Okay, you have that expectation. That's not happening. And there was one issue that was brought up that the mistaken code that dealt with this data, dumped the encrypted data but logged the unencrypted data.
Because the encrypted data is garbage.
Well, right. It's just right.
It
it's
can't
garbage.
be used in any way.
It can't be used in any way. But this is the point that someone, this news story was making was like, if this was really just a mistake, why was the code even differentiating between the encrypted and unencrypted?
Because that's the sensible thing to do. I think they were using not Wireshark. They were using what was the program they were using? It's just a common open source capture program for.
I think Gina's saying that why would you?
Because the program knows that the encrypted data is random nonsense.
Yeah, but why would you keep
the unencrypted
but
why would you keep anything?
Well, because SSIDs, you need the packets for SSIDs and other information is in the packet. So you could what's happening is you're driving along.
So it comes along with ride.
Yeah, you're driving along very fast, taking pictures, and
I hope you don't drive like that.
It's like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
You're
you're driving along, and so what you're also doing is you're saying SSID. I see access point. By the way, for purposes of geolocation, which is what this is all about, encrypted or unencrypted doesn't matter. But you capture these packets, and apparently it was a Kismet. Yeah, it was Kismet. Apparently. What they were doing is not trying to match the GPS information to the SSID or MAC address information in real time. Why bother? Just you record to the hard drive, GPS, what kind of garbage is coming in, boom, 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 as you're going down the road. Now, maybe Kismet's smart enough to say, well, I know I'm not going to get any good information out of the encrypted packets, so I'm just not even going to save them, not going to waste the hard drive space. Then they later... Now, the mistake, they probably should have thrown this data out after they did the crunching.
Right.
But I think that was an error. I don't think it was like...
Well, what about this report that it was a rogue employee?
This was the thing, right? They're saying it was a rogue employee. It wasn't just it just wasn't an innocent mistake because it was dumping the encrypted data, but keeping the unencrypted. So, that was kind of the accusation.
But anybody who's smart enough to use this knows that they're not getting anything of value at all.
Well, this is the issue, right? It's like I mean, if I were Google and I really wanted to record what people did on their networks, I would do it through like Google DNS. I mean, I would do it in a much
They have Gmail.
Right, they have Gmail. I mean, they have so much. They have your history. They have so many other better channels to collect data about you if they really wanted to. And it does seem like what could they possibly do with these fragments of data from these networks? I don't know. I mean, I suppose violating privacy.
Over here in Germany, it's just awful because I'll come in defending Google and get shot at at every meeting I go to, and media is just Google mad. Even though, again, Germany has the largest penetration of anywhere in the world, 90-some% penetration by the actual people, but media and government are going Google wacky.
Yeah, I mean, it would be as if the Google streetcars rolled down the street with an open microphone and recorded ambient sound, right? I mean, what could they
go wacky about that here? They go back. Last night I gave a talk in Munich, and some guy said basically they were looking at somebody's iPad and said, "Well, I see my picture is there on the iPad and it was transmitted." I said, "You're in a public place."
Yeah, come on.
I didn't give them the rights to do that.
Yeah. I think.
So what are you going to do? Require that you can't take a picture of anyone anywhere on life now unless you go up and get their legal sign off? It's absurd.
Well, apparently somebody took a picture of Marissa Meyer, and it's true. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. There's a tease. There's a tease for you. Before we do that, I do want to talk a little bit about one of our great sponsors, a new sponsor. We're really glad to have them. I've been looking for a while for the best place to do domain name registration, and I know that for a lot of people, that's something that we're looking for a better company to do this with. Not the cheapest necessarily, although it is the same price as most of these other guys, but one that's going to give you great service, that's going to not bog you down with 50 clicks before you can buy. And I found it at hover.com. They've been around for a while. I've used Tucows for registration before. This is Tucow's new site, Hover, HOVER.com. It's all about making domain registration and service absolutely easy. You don't get barraged with pages and pages of upsell offers. They make it easy to register. They used to be Domains Direct. They've rebranded it to hover.com. And if you use Hover Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, and you want to get customer service, there is a new no-hold policy. You will call and someone will answer, and that's it. They won't put you on hold. That's Monday during business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. Simple name, simple place to go, twit.hover.com. You'll get 10% off your next domain name registration if you use them. And we have moved all of our sites over. And I have to say, clean, easy to use, twit.hover.com. We thank them so much for their support. These are great people. I've known these guys for a long time, and I was really glad that we could get them on the shows and on the TWiT network. Twit.hover.com. 10% off your next domain name registration, and none of that upselling garbage. So Marissa Meyer is riding in a limo coach.
A bus. I know it's a limo. It's a bus.
And somebody snaps her picture, and then somehow it gets into a stock photography, and is now part of an ad for a 14-passenger stretch Hummer.
She was a bridesmaid at her brother's wedding in Minneapolis. Like, she's part of the wedding party. So
Yeah,
somehow one of the photos turned up in like an ad. It looks like an ad.
It's an ad.
For coaches.
The funny thing is, you cannot. There's no anonymity anymore. Your picture snapped. Somebody will see it somewhere. And say, that looks like Marissa Meyer. And they tweeted it. The tweet was something like, "Pretty sure I just spotted Marissa Meyer in a stocking wedding photo on a website." And Marissa admits it. Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, she handled it really well.
What are you going to say, right?
Yeah, what are you going to say? She said, nice spot, smiley face.
Best limo ever. Comfy seat.
I think that's just great. I think
it's great too.
She's a real person.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. Let's see. Google Music Store. Are we excited about this? It looks like fall now for the Google Music Store.
If it makes music on Android better, then yes, very excited.
And that's probably will be the way to use it, right? It'll be an Android feature, or
seems
what?
like streaming to Android would be a really huge, big, exciting deal.
I still haven't moved podcast to Android. How is that?
Easy. This is the thing. I use Double Twist, which is free, Mac or Windows, doubletwist.com. It's DVD John's new business. It looks just like iTunes. It does podcasts, it does audio, it does video. It gets your iTunes playlists and even syncs those. And you can buy music in Amazon. So,
MP3, yeah.
So it's got a store. I don't know what more could Google Music do? I don't know. It just seems like this is all I really need. And see, you can subscribe to podcasts. You can even install Android apps from here, which I really like.
Oh,
so the Android market is there, and there's apps, and you just install them. It's just like iTunes. Anyway,
so now you manage your podcast through Double Twist, Leo?
Yeah. I use Listen. I'm sorry.
I use Listen too.
Listen's all I need, really.
I just don't connect my phone to my computer very much because I don't really have to. The only time I do it actually is when I need to sync music.
Well, the reason I do because the USB charge port here at the office is connected to the computer. So, and if you put Double Twist, by the way, this should be my tool of the week, but it isn't. But if there's an Android app called Double Twist, and if you put that on, then it automatically goes into USB mode when you connect. The Double Twist app on the Android is a very nice music, player, but it also just kind of says, "Wake up, Double Twist," and so it gets more and more like iTunes all the time. I like it. And by the way, one of the reasons I like it for podcasts is because one of the most popular podcasts on here happens to be TWiT, and Twig is on there as well. So we have friends. We have friends at Double Twist.
I just typed in Double Twist into my Android phone and it suggested socialist. Socialist? Speaking of apps, I downloaded an earthquake app this week because, my house was shaking and I was
you're in San Diego. That's right. You had an earthquake.
Yeah. And the earthquake app is very good, by the way. And there are a lot of earthquakes around the world. Often. I wasn't aware of this until I installed the earthquake app. It's very cool. It's actually by a Google Android developer advocate, Rito Meyer, I think his name is. But yeah, it's a pretty cool app. So yes, that's what I was doing as the earth was shaking. I was like, there's got to be an app for this. I heard that there was an app for earthquake detection.
There's an app for that. Oh, wait a minute. Trademark Apple. Never mind. Forget I said that.
Yeah, we said that.
Forget I mentioned that. No. You know, the really number one reason to use the thing I will, if I end up using the iPhone, that I will miss the most is the integration of Google Voice with the Android operating system. It just becomes the voicemail. You can make Google Voice calls. You can even say, I have it set for any international call I make goes through Google Voice, but you can have all your calls go through Google Voice. It's just nicely integrated.
Speaking of which, one of the stories is Google Voice is integrated with Gmail as a VoIP service.
Now, how's that going to work?
Apparently, this is inside the firewall at Google right now. I won't put Chris on the spot, but that's what that story says.
Have you tried it?
Chris doesn't know nothing.
This is always an issue when we have Google employees on. We should say that when you're a Google employee and you come on this show, you come as a private individual, and we won't put you on the spot that way. So you don't have to
provide a gag you can just put in your mouth and
there should be a universal signal. Zip it, zip. Nothing. This looks cool. This is from the Google system.blogspot.com blog, the unofficial Google operating system blog. Google tests a new feature that makes Gmail chat more useful. Users are able to make and receive Google Voice calls from Gmail. So I guess it uses the chat that's in Gmail.
Well, it says here, I just didn't realize it's fairly obvious, I guess, but if you want to call someone using Google Voice, you need a phone.
Right.
Now.
But that's key.
The way to not do
that's
that.
the weird thing about Google Voice is that what it does is it calls you. It places. It's like your secretary. It places a call and then calls you with the call. So if you don't have a phone, you can't.
Right. So this obviates the need for having the phone, which is great because I never have my phone at my desk, and I always am like dashing across the apartment because I hear it ringing in the other room.
So it calls your Google chat?
So yeah, it looks like the way this would work is that it would ring your Google chat. So I mean,
that's great.
It's great. I mean, Google Chat has voice chat now, right? This is
Gizmo. They bought Gizmo 5.
The other thing I heard, I can't find the darn clip. I was looking for it again, but one report had it, and right now Chris is going to swallow his tongue, is that there was an effort to do a Gizmo desktop app, but that the founders didn't want to do anything that was outside a browser. They only want to do browser stuff. They don't want to do separate apps. So maybe this is a way to still handle the problem by incorporating it with Gmail.
Now, I still have Gizmo 5. I still have, does it still work? I mean, I still have my Gizmo 5 app. I should try it. I haven't logged in a while. They didn't shut it down, did they?
No, I don't think that was the issue.
Yeah. Gizmo's great because it's a SIP client, which means you can use it with asterisk or, it's a SIP phone, basically. And I presume then that means that Google Chat now is a SIP client, which means... Maybe I'm reading too much into this, that you could use it with any SIP provider. We're in an interesting world, I tell you, when it comes to telecommunications.
Yeah, but we're in a scary world.
Are you scared?
The rant I did last week about AT&T, I did on NPR's On the Media this week. I'm really just upset that the clock is back on the internet. Now, I was talking to some publishers here in Germany, and they're doing paid iPhone apps. And I said, watch out. Because what's going to happen is if somebody really loves your iPad app, and uses it a lot, they're going to go over their limit on their phone bill, and they're going to blame you.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why you got this. That's why I love things like Google Voice and SIP and Gizmo, because it's going to disintermediate all this and all these big telcos. It's got to all be data at some point. I know they don't like that idea.
Yeah, but you're going to get charged extra for the data at AT&T.
Oh, I see.
You're still getting your service from your telco.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, so you're still screwed.
This is why I was very disappointed that Google, even though they could have, did not bid on that 700 megahertz spectrum. I want Google to go into the ISP business. Yep. Do you think? I mean, would that make sense at some point? Would that be? That's really the thing that needs to be disintermediated. We need to take it out of the hands of these private providers.
Is that the white space? No. What's the white space spectrum?
It's not the white space spectrum. It was that old television, the UHF VHF spectrum.
But the white space is what Larry and Sergey have been talking about as Wi-Fi on steroids. When is the fate of that settled as to whether it's going to be unlicensed or sold?
I don't know. That's a good question. What is the frequency of this white space? Where are we talking about? FCC pressed to move on white space spectrum. So the FCC is obviously going to have to do something about this. Senators from both sides of the aisle pressuring the FCC to stop talking about what should and could be done with the unused white spaces of unused spectrum and start enacting policy to take advantage of it. It is part of the National Broadband Plan. They wanted to get this done. One of 360 recommendations in the broadband plan.
That to me is the key. Is so key because the solution to this is competition.
Right. But should the government go into this competition? No.
No, they should open it up so that we have open competition, and that's what Google's been saying. Right now, we have a quadrupoly.
Right. By the way, a new version of iTunes just came out moments ago. iTunes 9.2, designed to sync with the iPhone to enjoy your favorite music, movies, TV shows, books, and more on the go. I don't know if that means Wi-Fi sync. Sync and read books with an iPhone or iPod Touch, organize and sync PDF documents. No, this is all the stuff they've been talking about. I would love to see. This is another advantage that Android phones have, is the ability to sync over Wi-Fi with things like Google Listen. You don't have to hook it up to a computer. Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. You know what? Maybe I'm not going to use that piece of crap iPhone. I'm going to stick with my Nexus one. I'm going to get it fixed. The hell with it. The hell with it.
I'm going to come to the cottage. I just want to see the display.
Yeah, come over and see the display and then leave without my iPhone. Apple pre-orders for the iPhone on day one, which was yesterday, hit 600,000. That's more orders than ever in the history of mankind. The largest Apple pre-order, single-day pre-order ever. AT&T sold out all the devices it had allocated for early ordering, so they turned it off. I was just able this morning to buy one from Apple, though.
On their site?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was back up now.
I wonder how many sales they lost yesterday because I
tried to get through yesterday, couldn't get through at all. So
it's now, I think July 14 is the ship date for if you.
That's what it says on mine. What does that mean? Yeah. Does that mean I'll get it? No, they always do that. They ship it and then it sits in the UPS facility until when they're good and ready. So it's still the 25th before we'll get it, I imagine. Apple stores at San Francisco and New York staff recommended customers try ordering the device later.
Later. They ordered it to pick up at the store, but the fear is we're still going to have to go wait in a stupid line even though it's pre-ordered.
Stores will open at 7 a.m. in case you want to
that's crap again.
Get in the line early. Apple loves this, you know. They love this. They want you to wait in line.
And you just do it.
And yeah, you guys just do it. It's amazing. Just the power of this company is to market is just truly amazing. We're going to take a break, come back with our picks, our tools, and our tips. I should mention that this is actually an appropriate story. We're about to do the Ford Sync ad. That Ford, according to CNET, Ford owners like me with sync-enabled vehicles will be able to tap into Google Maps to download directions to their cars before month's end. I'm sorry. You know, you should run out and buy a Mustang right now. Get a Fusion if you're sensitive to the environment. If you need something big, get one of those Flexes. The free Send to Sync feature announced Tuesday by Ford will let drivers send Google Maps data from their Bluetooth-enabled computers or mobile phones to their in-car sync systems. Electronic directions are down. But see, now I already have turn-by-turn directions, so I'm not sure how this changes it. But I guess I can get them from Google. The route is calculated on the spot using the latest traffic information. That's one of the neat things about Sync, is it has the latest traffic information as well. So I have to say, I still, you know, sometimes people will do this. They'll say, my producers, when we were in Los Angeles yesterday for E3, printed out Google Maps directions. Well, now you just send them to the Sync. Map a destination at home, at work, wherever you have connectivity. When you get in your car, it already knows where you want to go. Boom! If I might borrow a phrase from Steve Jobs. Boom! So... yeah, baby, I love this thing. Now, if you haven't taken a look at Ford Sync, I want you to go to syncmyridepodcast.com. You can see all the features Of course, you have to have a Ford, Lincoln, or Mercury vehicle. You can't just, they don't have a third-party aftermarket sync. You got to buy it in the Ford. But if you're in the market for a new car, make sure you take a look at the Ford Sync in the car, and or go to Sync My Ride podcast, because it's just great. I mean, it's true and by the way, works with Android, 2 hands-free calling. So, one of the problems with the Android phone is it doesn't have built-in voice calling. They've got that voice calling application, but you still need to do the phone. And a lot of Bluetooth stuff doesn't, and a lot of cars don't do, you still have to pick up the phone. That's not hands-free. In the Ford Sync, no, you don't have to touch, I don't touch the phone. I just pair my Android phone with Sync, and then from then on, I don't take my hands off the wheel or the eyes off the road. It downloads the phone book so it knows all my contacts. I press the button on the wheel. I say phone. I say call Jeff Jarvis in Berlin. Boom, bam, just like that. It's there.
I'm telling you, we all have to podcast from our cars.
Yeah, from now on, we can podcast from our cars. Exactly.
All from our Ford Mustang.
Well, it's kind of cool. What's kind of cool is, and I talked to Alan Mullally, the CEO of Ford, at CES, and he kind of made a good point. I think Walt Mossberg made it first, though, that when you get into a car, you're suddenly disconnected from the world. You go back to the the 1950s where you're just not connected. You're driving along. That's fine. In terms of safety, one of the problems is all these distractions. So Ford wanted to make it possible for you to get in the car, still be connected to Twitter and to Slacker and to Pandora, to still be able to participate in the world, get traffic directions, turn-by-turn directions, make phone calls, but safely without going, while you're driving. So you keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road, you press that button on your wheel, you can do almost anything. It's just incredible.
So Leo, let me ask a question, even though I know you're in mid-commercial.
Yes.
So this means that unlike OnStar, which has to have a separate cell account, basically,
right,
with the Ford, you're just using your cell phone.
Yes. So, for instance, okay, so that's the thing about OnStar is if you have then this is what they sell in all their ads. You have a wreck, you can call emergency. Ford has this 911 assist. Once it's paired with your cell phone, if the airbags are deployed, it makes a call to 911. It sends the GPS data to the 911, and many 911 centers are able to get that. So immediately, unlike, this is one of the problems with E911, with the cell phone 911. They don't know where the hell you are. But with this, the GPS data from Sync goes to the 911. It sends a recorded message saying airbags have been deployed, and then gives you the opportunity to speak if you can. So
architecturally, what makes so much sense about that is that you don't want to have 5 separate SIM cards.
Precisely.
Right?
Precisely.
You want to be able to have one phone.
And there's no additional subscription fee. You don't have to
use the phone to do your laptop tethering, to do all this stuff.
Exactly. It's true hands-free calling.
You can buy a dual SIM for your car and your phone, but if both are on, neither works.
Right. So no, it's just whatever my phone. And by the way, it can be whatever your phone du jour is. I pair it. You can pair, I think, up to 99 phones. And so if you're somebody like me, I even paired my iPad to my Sync. So I listen to music on my iPad, and the phone still works. I still have the phone capability with my phone. So I've got 2 things paired. It's very cool.
You probably paired your Newton with it.
I'm an over-pairer. Over-pair. So that's enough of that. Sync available exclusively Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury vehicles. Check it out, or go to syncmyridepodcast.com. And Ford sent us to E3, sponsored our coverage, and we have some great coverage of E3. You can see more of that on the specials feed, twit.tv/specials. Our E3 coverage is available there, twit.tv/specials. It was kind of fun. One of the things that was neat, and this has nothing to do with Google, but it was cool, the Microsoft Connect thing, which seems dorky, where you dance in front of the Xbox, but it's actually really fun. And very sweaty.
I can only imagine.
Well, this is, you know what? In a way, I think this is good news, because there's quite a few people in this country anyway who spend,
we could all use a little more.
Spend a little time in front of the screen, and this gets you jumping and moving, and it's hard work. They've got, but they have some good exercise stuff. If you do yoga on the Connect, it looks at your pose. It's got 2 cameras. It's got a Z-axis camera, an RGB camera, and it's got a
infrared, right?
Yeah, an array microphone. So it can see, it knows where you are in space. It knows what your face is. It recognizes your face. So when you step in, it assigns an avatar to you. You step out, somebody else steps in, their avatar comes up. Two people step in, it says, oh, there's two people there. Puts both avatars up. You can play. It's really pretty sweet stuff. And it so if you're doing a yoga pose, it actually analyzes it, and it won't go on until you get the pose right.
Nice.
Unlock the pose.
That sounds really neat.
It's we did there were two games I played. There's a river rafting game and an obstacle course. In the obstacle course, you have to duck under things, jump over things, dodge out of the way. It's very physical. I worked up a sweat, but it was actually kind of strangely fun. You look like an idiot. You should only do it with friends and family. You look like
I think you should record this as raw video feed of you and just put it up.
Without knowing that I'm doing it.
Right.
Well, that's the other thing. It takes pictures of you. You know how, like, when you are on the water slide at Disneyland at the end when you're screaming and you're really unhappy, and it takes a picture of you and they sell it to you for $25? This does the same thing. It snaps a picture of you going like this and this, and then at the end of the game, you see all the images of you. It's pretty fun.
You're like, I hate this thing.
Yeah, I hate this. I hate it. I hate it. It was pretty fun stuff, I have to say. And of course, Sony's doing the thing with his Sony Move. And, you know, Nintendo's got 3D. There's so much money in games. Time for our tool, tip, and number of the week. We'll start with Gina's tip of the week.
All right. You know, I talked about this Android keyboard called ShapeWriter, which you swipe your finger back and forth to type if you're not good at the touch keyboard, and it's not in the Android market anymore. But the other product, which is similar, which is the keyboard is called Swipe with a Y. They are offering an official beta for the next couple of days. So if you go to beta.swipe.com. You have to register. You have to put in your email address, and they email you a link to download the beta. But it's available to try out. So right now, Swipe and ShapeWriter are not available in the market. But if you sign up for this beta now, and I think it probably won't be around only this week, I think you'll be able to try it out. I get a few emails about ShapeWriter. People saying, "Well, why isn't it in the market anymore?" I'm not really sure what happened to it. But it looks like Swipe is getting ready to do a full release. But you can try out the beta now.
Backstory on this, of course, you outed Swipe.
I did. You know, I mentioned an unofficial download of Swipe, and they weren't too happy about that. And yeah, so
then you switched to ShapeWriter, and you liked ShapeWriter, right?
And I did. Yeah, I did. ShapeWriter felt just as good as Swipe. But I'm happy to see that Swipe is opening up the beta to folks and doing a kind of an official beta and having people test. So you can get in on that now. Basically, right now, if you want to try one of these keyboards, the Swipe beta is really your only option, as far as I know.
Did you try it? Have you?
I'm still using ShapeWriter, but I just actually submitted my email address, so I'm gonna try. I'm gonna give Swipe.
Some phones, we should say, some phones do come installed with Swipe. So,
yes.
And in fact, I think some Windows mobile phones have Swipe. I think it is it's a better way of doing it. So instead of trying to hit that key, you slide your finger around, and it's got a smart algorithm. Essentially, it says, "Oh, that shape, that's this word."
Exactly.
You're drawing
I love it.
a shape. It's a very clever idea, I thought.
Yeah, I've been using it, for a long time, for months now, and I'm a lot faster doing it that way.
Yeah.
With ShapeWriter, so.
Now I just wish I could turn on my Nexus 1 because I'd really like to install this.
Wine.
Yeah. I literally I went from somebody with like 8 phones to somebody with no phone. I have no phone.
Did you get the Evo?
The Evo was a Sprint loaner, which went back. My iPhone I lent to Abby when she left hers back east, and she lost it.
Oh.
I guess I could take the SIM out of this and I have a Nokia N900, but I don't know. That thing is like carrying around a suitcase.
People are going to laugh at you on the street, Leo.
They will. They say, what is that? What is that monster phone you're using?
You'll be driving down in your Mustang, and they'll be hooting at you.
It's from Sweden. No, it's not. It's from Finland. Our number of the week, Mr. JJ.
9.5 million. Piper Jaffray's Gene Muster, the analyst, upped his estimate of iPhone sales in
iPhone or iPad?
And June 30.
iPhone or iPad?
iPhone 4 sales. 9.5 million by June 30, he estimates.
Well, after 600,000 in the pre-orders in the first day. You know, Apple, the rumor is Apple ordered more of these made than they've ever done before. Why? What's the deal? Doesn't everybody who has one want one, have one? What's the, I mean...
crack, man. It's crack.
It is crack.
It's time to upgrade.
$600, $700 for me to upgrade. What do you, we should always ask anybody who's on the show. What do you use, Chris?
Well, actually, I'm still rocking the iPhone 2G.
Oh.
It's got 4 gigs of RAM.
Wow.
It's kind of like having a 4 megabyte hard drive.
Grandpa.
It's a good discipline.
It is actually, it's kind of like I test all the Google web apps and the mobile apps on it, and I provide plenty of feedback to the team to let them know ways in which they could be improving these applications and making them faster.
It's actually really good that somebody takes a bullet for the team that way and uses older, slower.
It hurts.
Yeah, it hurts. But you need to use older, slower hardware so that people who have 2Gs don't get left in the cold.
Yeah, well, we get spoiled a lot, because we get to upgrade whenever we want. So, well, not whenever, but we get to upgrade, let's say. And it's not always the case that everyone has that ability.
Well, that's a really good point. I should maybe break out my old flip phone and just see how it feels.
What life is like for normal people.
Normal people. What is the oldest phone? I had a G1, but I lent it to a friend who lost his phone. But when I get the G1 back, maybe that's what. I mean, literally, I had 8 phones in here 2 weeks ago, and I have 0 now.
I was going to say, for someone with so much kids, already gear, you're phoneless.
They can't get the iPhone out soon enough. My tool of the week, well, I mentioned one, which is a Double Twist, and everybody should get the Double Twist application on your Android phone. It really is a great phone. But this is kind of a fun one, if I can find it here. It's kind of chat roulette for Street View. There's actually 2 ways to do this. There's a plugin you could use in Google Chrome. Unfortunately, my experience with the plugin is that it's so randomized. So it randomly pulls up a Street View. It's so randomized that it pulls up a lot of places, at least when I was trying it, that didn't have a Street View. So you get a lot of blanks, which is kind of not fun. And then there's one called Street View Funny at streetviewfunny.com that they must be somehow vetting the Street View, because it's just like chat roulette, but you get a Street View every time. So I said, there it is. Now, these seem to be all in the UK, unfortunately. Maybe that's why you get a Street View every time. So I'll put links to both of those in our Friendfeed feed. It's kind of fun to just randomly see a Street View. Okay, I'm easily amused. It's like touring the UK on a budget.
From around the world.
And the good news is, no male genitalia pops up. It's just amazing. you could try and try. Did you see that? Did you see that the guy who wrote Chat Roulette is trying to write a plugin that auto senses male genitalia and blocks it?
Well, somebody, I think Business Insider, did a contest to try to find the means to solve it, and the winning suggestion was that you do face recognition, and you figure if there's a face, there's no penis.
Oh. Unless your penis looks like a face, but that's another matter entirely. A subject for another show, I believe. Chris, I'm so sorry we degenerated to this point, but we do thank you so much for being here.
That's what the internet's for.
Yes, and he should know. He's open web advocate at Google, and I didn't know what he was advocating, and now I have an idea. If you want to find out more about Chris Messina, FactoryJoe.com is his website. Follow him on Twitter. I do. It really is a worthwhile feed, at FactoryJoe.
Or actually, no, you got me in wrong. It's at Chris Messina now.
Oh, you changed it.
Yeah, I became me.
Did it do that automatically? Because I know I'm seeing your...
It must have.
Yeah.
But every now and then I see you give me a little reply on Factory Joe. And
I got to fix that. Yeah, no, I'm following you. I just, There you go. There you go. I always think of you as Factory Joe.
It's all right. It's all right. It's a legacy thing.
Do you stay in touch with the Flock folks at all, or?
Every now and then, not too often, but I sometimes see those guys out and about. And it's really interesting that, of course, as we said before, they're built on Chromium now.
I'm so happy. So I'm going to move.
We've got some DNA strands in common now.
Yeah, no, I'm going to move because I have to say I love Flock. I used Flock for a long time, but I'm getting off that Firefox platform. It's such a pig. So, and I'm a Chrome fanatic. So
good stuff.
Yeah, I'll absolutely. Well, they have to do it on the Mac, but I'll put it on my Windows machines anyway. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Chris Messina from Google. Thank you, Jeff Jarvis in Berlin today, where it is late at night. So I'm going to let you go to bed. Good Abend. Jeff's book is What Would Google Do? His blog is buzzmachine.com. The new book, are you working on it already?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I was trying to remember the name of it. Do you have
Public parts.
Public parts. Yep, that's the opposite of private parts. I should be able to remember that. Thank you, Jeff. Always great to have you here. Couldn't do the show without you or Gina Trapani, who is the author of The Complete Guide to Google Wave, CompleteWaveGuide.com, also blogging at smarterware.org.
Yep.
What are you excited about right now these days? What anything? Because you have this passion for what you do, and I'm always curious. What is getting Gina interested today?
I'm morphing from a blogger to a coder again, so I'm just really excited about like design patterns and object-oriented design.
Patterns,
like things that
baby!
like I can't really tweet about because people will just be like, what?
I think patterns. I did all my programming, way back when. Patterns is very interesting. I love patterns. I'm starting to buy patterns books.
Factory patterns.
Yeah, you
like,
collect patterns. I used to buy the cookbooks, right? The Perl cookbook, the Python cookbook. Now you buy patterns books. I love that.
Yeah. So I'm sort of relearning a bunch of coding things that are like whatever. Actual coders are like, yeah, that was like 5 years ago, and then normal people are like, what are you talking about? So whatever.
It's like saying, I just discovered this thing called Bubble Sort. It's amazing. Just incredible. Do you have a Gina Patterns account on Twitter? You should. Seriously, this is a new thing that people are starting to do, where you have your main Twitter account, but you realize that if you start tweeting about patterns, people are going to glaze, right?
Right. So you make up the I can tweet about anything I want, coding wise.
Steve Gibson does that with pads, with slates. He says, I'm going to have a slate. Anytime I want to mention slate, I won't do it on my main account because I know that's going to make people crazy. Have a pattern. You could have Gina's pattern of the day. I won't mock you, I promise.
I don't know if I need another Twitter account, but yes, I like that idea.
Thank you all for being here. We do this show every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 2000 UTC at live.twit.tv. We invite you to join us live. You can also watch after the fact. We have video and audio versions available on iTunes, the Zune Marketplace, anywhere, Google Listen, anywhere better podcasts are aggregated. Find out more by going to our website, twit.tv/twig, twit.tv/twig, and there's a subscribe drop down there, and you can subscribe in any podcatcher at all. We'll see you next week on This Week in Google.